So, Taylor, we got the news today out of Los Angeles that the Dodgers are flipping their middle infielders. Mookie Betts is going from second base to shortstop, and struggling shortstop Gavin Lux is moving from short to second base. So, Taylor, just give me your immediate reaction thoughts on Mookie Betts becoming the Dodgers shortstop.
Well, my immediate reaction was the fact that Dave Roberts said the move is permanent for now. That's an all-time great Yogiism. That's like top 10 Yogiism, and that's Dave Roberts and not Yogi Berra. But when that news initially dropped, and when I read it, it popped up on my phone, I was a little bit surprised because it felt a little bit early to be making a move like this. But as the news kind of sank in during the day for me a little bit, and I remembered that, the Dodgers regular season actually starts in less than 2 weeks in Korea, it's felt like a really smart move to me. Because while Mookie isn't guaranteed to be a stud shortstop right away, this team can't afford to deal with the level of uncertainty that Lux was showing at one of their premium positions in spring training. And since Lux has already dealt with those throwing issues and he's attributed to those as anxiety as a prospect, you just can't let him keep struggling to the point where that anxiety is going to spiral out of control. So I like that they're doing this now and they're giving him some time to settle in back into second base where he's more comfortable and where he doesn't have to press too hard, because if you do leave him in there and he continues throwing like he was in spring training, you're at risk for giving him a case of the you-know-whats. And the you-know-whats, they take some time to work through. And one of the things we've talked about, Matt, is how extremely high the expectations are on this team this year. And I think Lux is unfortunately kind of the first one to show the signs of the pressure that this team is under. You know, that he's 26 years old. He was hurt all year last year. He barely played any shortstop for the Dodgers even in 2022. And this season, he was expected to go out there and be the starting shortstop for a team that spent almost $1 billion this offseason and is expected to win the World Series. Like you've talked about, it's not that they want to win the World Series. Everybody wants to win the World Series. This team needs to win one. If not this year, then pretty much next year. Putting a guy with documented anxiety-related performance issues at one of the most important defensive positions on the team with the highest expectations is just a bad spot for Lux to be in. And as a guy who went through throwing issues myself, I can tell you it's an absolute nightmare. And everyone that has ever been in that situation is sending Gavin Lux their positive thoughts right now. We're all pulling for you, buddy, because that's not a good place to be in, and we know it. While Mookie Betts is far from being a proven shortstop, he's a guy that I know can handle that pressure, which is why I like this move. And honestly, Matt, I wasn't a huge fan of putting Mookie at second to begin with. I like this a lot more because when you're taking the best right fielder defensively in baseball and putting him somewhere else, that better be a spot where the defense is valuable. And his defense and athleticism is a lot more valuable at shortstop than it is at second base. But there's no guarantee he's going to be a good shortstop right away. Yeah, he adjusted to second base very quickly, but he also played second base for the majority of his time in the Red Sox farm system. He played about 2,000 innings there before they moved him to the outfield because they had this guy named Dustin Pedroia at second base at the time. And outside of those 12 starts last year, he hasn't played shortstop for 10 years, and that dates back to his time in the Arizona Fall League. And ultimately, he's going to be fine, but I just feel like we shouldn't expect too much from him at short right away. And it also seems like they're in a situation where they're going to still try and get Miguel Rojas in at shortstop when they can, and then move Mookie over to second, depending on the situation, which I'm guessing means that Miggy Rose playing at short versus lefties, then they move Betts over to second, sit Lux, or maybe that also means they roll with Miguel Rojas if they're starting a guy that has a high ground ball rate, like Bobby Miller, who generates a lot of ground balls. Tyler Glasnow also had a much higher ground ball rate last year than I realized, so maybe during some of those starts, we actually see Miguel Rojas take the lead at shortstop. One of the other interesting things about this whole situation is we're seeing right now literally the only downside of having Shohei Ohtani on your team, which is that you can't take his bat out of the lineup. You can't play him in the field, so that DH spot is locked up. So if the Dodgers want Lux's bat in the lineup on any given day, and if he's also a defensive liability at the time, you have to play him in the field or you have to bench him. There's no wiggle room there. So if Mookie Betts is really the Dodgers shortstop on opening day, this is definitely the Dodgers gambling a little bit. They're taking a little bit of a risk here because even though he played a few regular season games at short, he ultimately only has 98 innings of experience at short in the big league. So there's no guarantee this is going to be a great solution right away. But I would much rather have a guy at short who I know can handle the pressure of being the shortstop for the LA Dodgers in 2024 with any of the consequences of that defensive inexperience over the course of the regular season, those can get worked through, because you know that even if Mookie is a subpar defensive shortstop for the first part of the year, this team is still going to win the NL West no matter what. And I have every confidence that Mookie is going to adapt and be a good shortstop, because this guy is good at literally everything he does, Matt, and to the point where it makes me angry sometimes. Because I don't know if you know, me and Mookie Betts were born on the exact same day. So
really, October 7th birthday?
Yeah, October 7th, 1992. Me and Mookie Betts were born.
Oh,
so
I didn't even know. You guys are the same age. I didn't even know that.
Same exact age. Same day.
Wow.
Same age. So every time I hear about some dumb news about him bowling a perfect game or dunking a basketball or like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro or whatever, it just makes me feel like I haven't done anything cool ever. So thanks for that, Mookie Betts. But that's why I'm not too worried about this shortstop situation. It might be a little bit rough to start, but he's one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete in baseball, and he's going to figure it out. And I think this is ultimately a really, really good move for this team right now.
He's the best athlete in baseball, Taylor. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen the videos of him running routes. Like, he could be a slot receiver. Like, we've seen the videos of him dunking a basketball, shooting a basketball. He probably could have been a high-level college basketball player. Maybe not NBA because of his height, but he certainly could have been a high-level college basketball player. Like you said, bowling perfect games, playing all of the hardest positions in baseball. Like, you can just put him anywhere you want, and he'll play there, and he'll play it pretty well. So that's for those reasons, Taylor. That's why I'm not concerned about this situation for the Dodgers, is because you have Mookie Betts, the best athlete in baseball. You put him at short, you give him enough time at short, he's going to figure out how to be a good shortstop. I guarantee you that. Mookie Betts is an unbelievable athlete. He's going to figure it out. So obviously it's concerning about Lux, and obviously, Taylor, like you mentioned, Lux's throwing issues. Listen, Lux, those throwing issues aren't going to go away because you're going to second base. Just know that. They're not going to go away. I read a game. Obviously, I played college baseball for any of those who know me and are watching this, but I read a book. Me and Taylor both, we played baseball. We had our fair share of mental issues playing the game of baseball. So I got a book called The Mental Game of Baseball, which if any of you guys are out there and are really like baseball content and really like, reading stuff about baseball, it's a great book to kind of just learn the game of baseball further and how much mentally goes into it. They talk about Chuck Knobloch in there, where he had from second base, he couldn't even make a throw to first base from second base. So just because you're moving positions, it's almost harder, right? Because it's a shorter throw. It's like, oh, I have to make this throw. I have to make this throw. I have to make this throw, right? So just because it's a shorter throw, just because you're in a different spot, doesn't mean those issues go away. So you have to deal with those issues head on, whether you're at short, whether you're at second. So those issues aren't just going to go away. But at the end of the day, I'm really not concerned about this from a Dodgers perspective, because even if you do have to take Lux out of the lineup and you want to put in say Mookie isn't great at shortstop, well, you have a really good defensive shortstop on the bench in Miguel Rojas. And listen, you're not worried about offense if you're the Dodgers. Like, the Dodgers have plenty of offense. Like, you're going to score plenty of runs. You're going to be just fine. So again, you're looking out for the long-term future of a really, really good prospect and a really, really good player in Gavin Lux, obviously a really good young player in Gavin Lux. You want to look out for that. I don't think this impacts even the short-term, this season future of the Dodgers, because I think either way, they're going to be okay. Whether Lux is at short, Lux is at second, Mookie's at second, right field, center field, wherever you want to play him, Rojas is at short. I think this team is going to has enough talent, has enough depth to be able to figure out no matter what is going on, in terms of Lux's mental health or in terms of where he's at as far as on the field goes.
Right. Short term, I don't think this really affects them that much, honestly. I mean, if you're going from, a defensive liability in Lux to maybe just a Mookie Betts, who is not a liability, but just isn't super refined at shortstop, I don't think that's going to be a big difference for you either way. But I do think the bummer in this is kind of in the long-term aspect for me, is Lux has kind of come up being that guy that's been expected to be their shortstop. I mean, for any of those people out there like me that play out of the park baseball, it's a great baseball GM simulator game. And, inevitably in year 2027 in that game, Gavin Lux is a 5-star, 8-WAR shortstop. Like I said, I went through my own throwing issues, and a lot of those were at second base. And that length of throw is tricky because in your head, you're like, I don't have to rush this. I don't have to rush this. So you take your time and you end up just not knowing what to do with your wrist because you don't want to throw it too hard and you don't want to throw it too soft. And you just end up floating this ball that goes over the first baseman's head, which is exactly what Chuck Knobloch went through. Right. And that's a tough thing to work through, but it's one of those situations where you kind of just have to go to a backfield and just throw as hard as you can at a target and not think for hours and just do that on end to get rid of that. So it's a tough process to go through, but I think, like I said, because he has that experience at second base, like I think it's mostly mental. And once he gets that muscle memory at second base back, I think it'll alleviate a lot of those problems.
100%. And Taylor, you touched on one thing there where it's like you just have to go in there and not think. And, when you kind of tell yourself to not think, that's when you think the most. It's kind of like when you tell yourself, like, you start thinking about itching.
Like, don't think about a blue elephant right now. What did you just think
exactly. Exactly. You think about like, I'm not going to think about itching. And then as soon as you get the word itching in your head, you start scratching, you know what I'm saying? So it's natural for that to happen, So it's going to be a challenge for him to kind of get out of that. I know for me, I think all the kids that I coach and work with can vouch for me. I can throw I was kind of natural outfielder, so I can throw from right field perfectly one hop strikes to home plate. Like I can throw it perfect, but you put me in a BP situation, I'm throwing like 3 out of 10 strikes. I can't throw strikes. You can ask any of the kids that I throw BP to. My BP is horrible because I can't throw strikes, right? And it's a mental thing, right? I have a lot more success with, throwing from the outfield than I do from BP. It's whatever the case may be. I don't know what it is, right? But there's just that thing with me when it comes to BP. I start thinking like, oh, you got to throw this here, you got to throw this here, and it doesn't work. Baseball is such a mental game that obviously for Lux being 26, again, I'm also 26. You can still figure it out. You just have to keep pushing through and kind of figure out what works for you and kind of figure out how to overcome those little hurdles that you do have. So yeah, we're definitely looking out for Lux, but yeah, I think as far as this season goes, I think the Dodgers are going to be all right as far as far as their team goes, because there's just so much talent and so much depth there. I have no doubt that they're going to be able to figure it out.
They have so much depth on the infield too. I mean, especially after they picked up Kike, like that's a guy that, if they need him to, like he can play short. He's a great second baseman. They've got Chris Taylor can still play there. Who can play in the infield. Miguel Rojas, obviously. And like Max Muncy does still have some positional flexibility as well. So like they have options, but it's the bummer is that you want to find a situation that maintains Lux's confidence but is also still letting you win games. Because one of the other things I kind of thought about with this is they've also got a guy in Yoshinobu Yamamoto who is trying to make some big adjustments to this league as well. And if you've got a liability at shortstop, and that's something that he has to think about, you don't want anything in the back of his mind like that when he's trying to pitch. He already has a lot of things that he's trying to adjust to. So you don't want things like that bogging him down at all either. And that really goes for really everybody else on their pitching staff. I mean, Tyler Glasnow is coming into a situation where the expectations are high on him. He, like I said, he had a really high ground ball rate. Rookie last year, Bobby Miller, like he's got a lot to live up to this year for a guy that's as young as he is. He's got a high ground ball rate. Like those guys, you don't want that in the back of their mind that, I don't necessarily want to give up a ground ball to the shortstop because I don't know what's going to happen. Like you need some certainty there. So I think they're going to try and work in Miguel Rojas whenever they can, just for that defensive flexibility. Because like you said, I mean, the lineup is so good. Like the offense is going to be there, whether you have Miguel Rojas hitting 9 or whoever, Chris Taylor hitting 9. Like it doesn't really matter who's hitting 9 in that lineup. Like 1 through 8, you're going to be bashing. Right. So I'd rather sacrifice that one spot for a little bit more defensive certainty in their case.
Yeah. I mean, say you lose a run offensively per game, which obviously you're not swapping Lux and Rojas, you're going to gain a run defensively for swapping Lux and Rojas, so it's going to be an even trade no matter what. Like what the Dodgers are going to win 8-2 now instead of 7-3. like who cares? Like who cares? It doesn't really matter. They're going to win a lot of games. Even if Lux was struggling at shortstop, I still feel they're going to win a lot of games with this team. So, but like you said, it is important, especially, this is kind of the first example of the pressure that's under, this team is going to be under, because there's a lot of guys in new situations. Obviously, like you mentioned, Yamamoto's in a completely different country, in a country he doesn't even speak the language, and he's got to, come in and, have no idea who his shortstop is. But, obviously now Mookie Betts being there is kind of like, oh, I got Mookie over there, I'm okay. He's going to be able to figure it out. He's going to make the play. So yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to monitor. But yeah, I think the Dodgers are going to be just fine with Mookie Betts at shortstop, no doubt.
Yeah, because Mookie can just do everything,
He does it all, just like everybody born on October 7th, 1992. They can all they do it all.
Yeah. I mean, I'm out there. I was shooting hoops the other day. I was doing fine. I was hitting layups. I was hitting free throws. Couple 3-pointers. I bowled a 135 the other day. So I'm up there. Don't get too cocky, Mookie Betts, shortstop of the Dodgers.
You guys are actually kind of around the same size, aren't you, too?
Don't. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to bring it up. Thanks, Matt.